We often think transformation comes from grand gestures. The career leap, the sudden lifestyle overhaul, the dramatic New Year's resolution. But the truth is, most of us don't fail because the dream is too big. We fail because the steps we take are too big, too fast, and too unsustainable. Real change isn't an explosion. It's a quiet spark that catches fire over time. Think about how rivers carve valleys. They don't do it in a single flood. They do it drip by drip, flow by flow over centuries. It's the consistent small movement of water that changes the shape of entire landscapes. Our lives work the same way. The smallest choices repeated daily shape the person we become. Consider the difference between reading a page a day versus not reading at all. One page doesn't feel like much. But one page a day is 365 pages in a year, an entire book. Multiply that across years, and suddenly you're not just someone who reads. You're someone who grows through knowledge. Small steps don't just add up, they multiply. The challenge is, small steps rarely feel satisfying in the moment. We don't feel transformed after a single workout. We don't feel wise after one page. We don't feel wealthy after saving $1. That's why so many people quit. But what's invisible today becomes undeniable tomorrow. Every great athlete, every skilled musician, every trusted leader you admire didn't arrive overnight. They built themselves in layers, each practice, each decision, each repetition stacking on the last. Success leaves footprints, and those footprints are made of small steps. When we lower the pressure to do everything at once, we give ourselves permission to actually begin. The big leap overwhelms us. The small step invites us. And once we start moving, momentum takes over. One choice becomes two, two become 10, and before long, the life that once felt out of reach becomes a reality we've built piece by piece. Small steps also build trust with ourselves. Every time we follow through on something tiny, drinking a glass of water instead of soda, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, writing down one thought before bed, we send ourselves a message: I keep my promises. And trust in ourselves is the foundation of confidence. The beauty of small steps is that they're always available. No matter how stuck we feel, no matter how heavy life becomes, there is always one thing we can do today that nudges us forward. One thing that reminds us we are not powerless. One thing that proves to us that shaping a big life doesn't start with a giant leap. It starts with the smallest step. Perfection is a moving target. No matter how close we think we are, the bar always shifts a little higher, a little further. Chasing it is like chasing the horizon. No matter how far you walk, it never gets any closer. And in that endless pursuit, we often forget the value of the small wins that happen along the way. Perfection whispers, don't start until it's flawless. Progress says, start and improve as you go. One keeps us stuck in planning, doubting, waiting. The other nudges us into motion, even if it's clumsy at first. The truth is, no great invention, no work of art, no act of leadership was ever perfect in its first version. It was messy, and then it was refined. Think of a sculptor staring at a block of marble. Perfection would demand the statue appear instantly flawless and complete. Progress allows the sculptor to chip away, piece by piece, mistake by mistake, until the figure emerges. It's the same with our lives. We are works in progress, not finished masterpieces. The pressure to be flawless often leads to paralysis. We avoid the gym because we can't do the full workout. We don't start writing because we can't produce a masterpiece. We don't speak up because we're afraid it won't come out perfectly. But every master was once a beginner. Every expert once stumbled through their first attempt. Progress, however small, compounds into growth. One push-up becomes strength. One paragraph becomes a book. One brave conversation becomes connection. The measure isn't whether we did it without mistakes, but whether we did it a little better than the last time. When we allow progress to guide us, we shift our focus from outcome to process. The joy comes not from achieving perfection, but from noticing the ways we've grown. Yesterday you hesitated, today you acted. Yesterday you doubted, today you tried. That's progress, and progress is sustainable. Perfection demands applause from others. Progress creates pride within ourselves. It doesn't matter if the world notices, because the goal isn't flawless execution. The goal is forward motion, however imperfect it looks from the outside. Each day offers a simple choice: wait until conditions are perfect, or take one imperfect step forward. One keeps us dreaming, the other keeps us becoming. We understand the power of compounding when it comes to money. Save a little, invest it wisely, and over time, it multiplies into something far greater than its original form. But we often overlook that the same principle applies to our lives. The choices we make each day, even the smallest ones, don't just add up, they compound. A single act of kindness may seem small. A single workout may feel insignificant. One page read before bed may feel like it doesn't matter. But repeat these actions daily and they begin to create momentum. Momentum becomes habit, and habit becomes identity. Over time, those small, almost invisible acts transform into a life that looks completely different from where it began. Consider the difference between eating one healthy meal versus eating healthy consistently for a year. One meal won't change much. But a year of small, consistent meals reshapes your energy, your confidence, even your outlook. That's the compounding effect at work, subtle, steady, unstoppable. The danger is that negative choices compound too. Skipping the workout doesn't ruin your health, but skipping it repeatedly does. Ignoring one honest conversation won't destroy a relationship, but silence over time builds distance. Just as good choices stack, so do harmful ones. We are always compounding. The only question is in which direction. The beauty of compounding is that it doesn't demand perfection. Missing a day doesn't erase progress if you keep going. What matters is consistency over intensity. The person who makes one small positive choice daily ends up further ahead than the person who makes a massive change once, burns out, and quits. What makes compounding so powerful is how invisible it feels at first. You don't notice the extra strength after 1 week at the gym. You don't notice the calm after 1 week of journaling. But one day, weeks or months later, you look back and realize you're no longer the same person. The shift was too gradual to see daily, but too significant to deny over time. This is why daily choices matter more than grand resolutions. The big goals give us direction, but the small actions build the bridge to get there. It isn't about what you did once in a while, it's about what you do again and again until it becomes second nature. Life, like money, rewards patience. The compounding effect is slow, but it's certain. Each choice, no matter how small, is an investment. Each repeated action is interest earned. And one day, those investments pay dividends far beyond what you imagined when you first began. When we talk about change, most people focus on habits, the actions we repeat day after day. But behind every habit lies something deeper: identity. Habits are not just things we do, they are expressions of the person we believe ourselves to be. If we only chase habits, we may change what we do temporarily. If we shift identity, we change who we are permanently. Think about the difference between saying, "I'm trying to quit smoking," versus "I'm not a smoker." The first is an action you're struggling with. The second is an identity you've embraced. One keeps the habit external, the other rewires who you are at the core. That's why daily acts matter, not just because they move us forward, but because they tell us every day who we are becoming. Every small choice is a vote for an identity. When you go for a run, you're not just exercising, you're casting a vote for being an active person. When you read a book, you're not just learning, you're casting a vote for being someone who values growth. When you help a stranger, you're not just being nice, you're reinforcing the identity of a kind and compassionate human being. The challenge is that identity takes time to build. One act of honesty doesn't make you trustworthy. One day at the gym doesn't make you an athlete. But each time you repeat that act, you reinforce the story you tell yourself about who you are. Over time, that story becomes stronger than the habit itself. Too often, we focus on results: losing weight, making money, achieving milestones. But results are outcomes, not identities. You don't become healthier because you hit a number on the scale. You become healthier when you consistently live in alignment with the identity of a healthy person. You don't become wealthy because of one big paycheck. You become wealthy when your choices reflect the identity of someone who manages money wisely. Identity-driven change is more resilient than habit-driven change. If you see yourself as someone who runs, you'll go for a jog even on days when you don't feel like it, because it's part of who you are. If you only see running as a habit you're trying to keep, it's easier to break when motivation fades. Anchoring to identity gives strength to the behavior. And the most powerful part is that identity is self-reinforcing. Each small daily act strengthens the belief, and that belief makes the next act easier. The cycle continues until what once felt like effort becomes simply the way you live. What started as a habit has transformed into who you are. So every time you make a choice, ask yourself, what identity am I voting for? Because each action is more than a task. It's a statement about the person you're becoming, and over time, those statements shape the story of your life. When we want to improve our lives, the temptation is to take on everything at once. We set 10 goals, make long lists, and imagine a complete reinvention. But the weight of all those expectations quickly becomes overwhelming. Instead of moving forward, we freeze under the pressure of too much change. The way out of that trap is simple. Start with one thing. One thing creates clarity. When you decide on a single meaningful action, you remove the noise of competing priorities. You don't have to juggle, you don't have to overthink. Your energy goes in one direction, and because of that focus, your chances of actually following through rise dramatically. Think about a magnifying glass under the sun. Spread the light across a page and nothing happens. Focus it on one small point, and it can start a fire. Our attention works the same way. Scattered across too many goals, it loses strength. Directed at one meaningful action, it becomes powerful enough to ignite real change. Starting with one thing also gives us proof that progress is possible. When we succeed in one small area, no matter how simple, it builds confidence. That success becomes fuel, and confidence is contagious. It spills into other areas of life, making the next challenge feel more achievable. It's important to choose something that matters. Not the thing that looks impressive to others, but the thing that feels meaningful to you. Maybe it's drinking more water. Maybe it's journaling for 5 minutes. Maybe it's making your bed. It doesn't have to be dramatic, it just has to be real. Once you commit to one thing, the ripple effect begins. That single action often leads to others naturally. Drink more water and you feel more energized. With more energy, you move your body more. With more movement, you sleep better. Suddenly, one small choice has triggered a chain reaction of improvements. And the beauty of one thing is that it's sustainable. You don't burn out because you're not trying to overhaul your life overnight. You're building slowly, deliberately, with patience. What starts as one small step becomes a path you can actually walk, rather than a mountain you can't climb. Every great transformation begins with one decision. Not 10, not 20, just one. The courage to choose that first thing is what separates those who dream of change from those who actually create it. Growth doesn't begin with action. It begins with awareness. Before we can change anything, we first need to notice it. Too often, we move through life on autopilot, repeating the same routines, reacting in the same ways, carrying the same habits, without ever asking whether they're helping us or holding us back. Awareness is the switch that turns the lights on. Awareness is about paying attention to the signals around us and within us. What gives you energy? What leaves you feeling empty? Who do you feel more alive around? And who do you feel drained by? These small observations are clues. And when you start collecting enough of them, patterns emerge. Those patterns tell you where to grow and what to let go of. It's not about judgment. Awareness isn't saying, this is good, that is bad. It's simply noticing. Noticing that scrolling on your phone for an hour makes you restless, while taking a walk makes you calm. Noticing that certain conversations inspire you, while others leave you doubting yourself. These insights don't demand perfection, they invite curiosity. Once we notice, we gain the power to choose differently. Without awareness, we repeat the same cycles without understanding why. With awareness, even if nothing changes immediately, we're already one step closer to growth because we've taken ownership of our experience. Awareness opens the door to intentional living. Think of a gardener. They don't just water blindly. They notice which plants thrive in the sun, which ones need shade, which soil is too dry, which leaves show signs of disease. Growth in the garden requires observation first, action second. Our lives are no different. Without awareness, we risk pouring effort into the wrong places. The beauty of awareness is that it doesn't require huge effort. It's simply slowing down enough to pay attention, journaling for a few minutes, pausing before reacting, asking yourself, how do I feel after this? That little pause creates space, and in that space, growth can happen. Over time, awareness changes how we see ourselves. We start to recognize the cycles we're stuck in, the choices that shape us, and the environments that influence us. We begin to understand why we feel the way we do and why we act the way we act. That understanding is the foundation of transformation. And when awareness becomes a daily practice, growth becomes inevitable. Because once you see clearly what builds you and what breaks you, you can no longer ignore it. You're compelled to act in ways that align with the person you want to become. Motivation is unreliable. It comes in bursts, fades quickly, and often disappears when we need it most. If we wait to feel motivated before we act, we'll spend most of our lives waiting. Momentum, on the other hand, doesn't depend on feelings. Once we begin moving, even in the smallest way, that movement carries us forward. Momentum is built through discipline in small acts. It's waking up and making your bed even when no one sees it. It's showing up to write a single paragraph even when inspiration feels absent. It's taking the first step, not because you're motivated, but because you promised yourself you would. Those small acts accumulate, and over time they create flow. The real gift of momentum is that it builds self-trust. Each time you follow through on a small action, you send yourself a message. I can rely on me. That message is powerful. It shifts you from someone who wishes to someone who acts. And the more you act, the more trust you build. Self-trust naturally evolves into confidence. Confidence isn't born from talent or luck. It's born from evidence. When you've shown yourself, again and again, that you'll do what you said you'd do, you stop doubting. You stop asking, can I? And start knowing, I can. A momentum is what carries you through the days when motivation is absent. Because there will always be those days. The mornings you feel tired, the evenings you feel drained, the moments you'd rather quit. In those moments, it isn't a surge of motivation that saves you, but the steady rhythm of discipline you've already built. Think of a train starting from rest. It takes enormous energy to move the first few feet. But once it's rolling, it glides with far less effort. Our lives work the same way. The hardest part is the start. After that, momentum reduces the weight of effort, making progress feel natural instead of forced. Momentum also lowers resistance. The more often you act, the smaller the gap becomes between intention and execution. You stop negotiating with yourself, stop overthinking, stop waiting for the right mood. You simply move, and the act of moving keeps the energy alive. And the remarkable thing about momentum is that it compounds. One small act today makes tomorrow easier, and the next day easier still. Over time, discipline in the smallest moments grows into unstoppable forward motion, carrying you far beyond what motivation alone could ever sustain. Legacy isn't built in grand gestures or rare moments. It's built in the quiet, ordinary choices we make every single day. What you do repeatedly, almost without noticing, slowly becomes the story of your life. The small, consistent actions that feel insignificant in the moment are the very things that shape how you will be remembered. Every day you cast votes for your legacy, choosing kindness in a brief interaction, choosing honesty when it would be easier to hide, choosing effort when it would be easier to quit. These micro choices don't seem monumental at the time, but together they accumulate into the character others know you by. The danger is that we often underestimate their power. We imagine legacy as something we'll build later when we've achieved more, when life is bigger, when people are watching. But legacy isn't something we create at the end of our lives. It's something we're writing right now, in the way we live today. Think about the people you admire. It's rarely because of one grand achievement. It's because of how they consistently showed up. A parent who listened with patience. A mentor who always made time. A friend who kept their word. Their greatness wasn't in one dramatic moment, it was in the sum of countless small moments. Micro choices also reveal priorities. The decision to check your phone instead of being present with your family tells one story. The decision to put it away tells another. Over time, those small stories add up, and they form the narrative of what mattered to you most. The weight of legacy is that you don't get to choose whether you leave one. You only get to choose what kind. Every action, every response, every choice leaves a trace. And those traces, invisible in the moment, become the footprint you leave behind for others to follow. What makes this powerful is that it means change is always within reach. You don't need to wait for a big opportunity to start shaping your story differently. You can begin right now with a single choice. One micro decision in alignment with who you want to become can set the tone for a different future. And when those micro choices are repeated day after day, they weave together into a legacy that is unmistakable. Not one of perfection, but one of presence, of integrity, of care. A legacy written not in grand statements, but in the fabric of everyday life.